us can easily get swept into any line of thinking, whether it's packaged as beautiful and helpful or destructive.
Everything's going to be packaged as good,
We
though.
all get swept up
Yeah.
into it.
Right.
But yeah, I just think if you spend time with yourself, then you'll know what is helpful.
And that goes back to knowing
loving.
yourself. You got to know yourself.
Which I've only started that journey the last 2 years, I'd say.
Yeah.
Outside of how you know yourself as a kid. You know yourself as a kid, and then you
Yes.
forget, and then and then maybe adulthood is remembering.
Yeah. Because I think as soon as you can, like you're saying, okay, you know yourself and you sit with yourself and what does my intuition say? What does my heart say first and foremost? That's the right. And then your brain and your thinking, that comes later. But a lot of time we can just rationalize anything. I can convince myself, and probably I convince a lot of people about anything just using rational thinking. But that doesn't mean it's right. It's what's actually the truth? Because everything is always packaged as good, whether it's evil or not. But I think the intention usually is good. But what's good for one person might be evil for another, and what's evil for one person might be good. It just depends on where you sit with it. So got to make our own decisions and have open conversations, conversations like this. Man,
Right, open for your mind to be changed.
Yeah.
Andrew's really helped me with that, especially yeah, of course there's things that I get opinionated about. Of course there are.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to learn right now is there's a Buddha saying, and I don't remember what it is now.
Leave it at that.
I'm gonna paraphrase a saying from the Buddha that's basically along the lines, or how I'm internalizing it, at least, how it's coming back to me, is just everything can always change. Nothing is one set, permanent thing. Mm-hmm. Nothing. Mm-hmm. Maybe we could look it up, and Rai, you could just pop it in the video, the one I'm talking about, because that's not really what it is, but that's how I'm taking it. For me, what is to be open and not be so set in my ways that I can't see other people.
Yeah. Well, some of it, even a big part of the Buddhist teachings is detachment, not being attached to things, whether that's an idea, whether that's a belief system, a person, of course, material things, but it's that's a huge part of it is I'm okay to change my mind about something. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
That's growing.
Yeah.
Let's walk.
Let's walk.
Have you, or do you think you have ever fully been seen?
Yeah.
Yeah? Wow.
Yeah. I do, but I couldn't tell you who. I think by myself.
That's a good start.
I do feel seen now, but I only feel that shift came when I started to get to know myself, when I started to shift and go.
Bad, terrible
Plug
joke.
my first song. Thank you. Yeah, it's just as cheesy as your bow tie party theme fun.
Slightly less cheesy.
Okay. I feel since I have started to know thyself, what, that is different for everybody, then I feel really seen with myself, the great parts of me and the not great parts of me, and the duality of them both, and really looking at myself in the mirror, like we said earlier. So yes, I do feel I am deeply seen and understood, but I feel it's by myself and the universe or God. I feel deeply seen in that way. And I didn't feel like that before this journey of getting to know myself.
Wow.
And then I have amazing people around me, like yourself, that I also feel sees me. But that feeling of truly being seen, has only come from myself, and maybe this is just for me on my journey, I think it's only supposed to come from myself. Regardless of who's around me.
Yeah. I think that's very wise, because other people can't see you unless you see you.
True.
I mean, sometimes...
And maybe more people will start to see me now because I'm seeing myself.
Yes. And that's it. Like, you know, when you encounter someone who just is themselves and they walk into the room, whatever room you walk into, and they're them, and they speak and they're them. It doesn't matter if a camera's on or if a camera's off or if it's a room full of strangers. You're just like, yo, you're a star. Like,
yes.
Like, and not in a famous sense, just meaning like you have gravity to you because your inner sun is glowing.
Yes.
And when we know ourselves, dang, my shoe. As far as the eye can see is yours. But the elephant graveyard, you can't go there.
What a great movie.
Oh, yeah.
Documentary.
Yes.
Does that, the elephant graveyard, does that symbolize the apple
Yes.
that we were instructing not to?
Yes. That's exactly what it is. It's like, it's God's a genius. Because literally he goes, you can eat anything in the garden except this fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Knowing that saying that to a human, they're going to do that. But that is the first step of knowing yourself, is knowing what you are not.
That really ties back into what we were saying earlier. Knowing what you are capable of.
Yeah.
Because you really know yourself.
Yes.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful analogy or metaphor. Hey, you know what's cool about religions?
What?
Or I don't even want to say, well, what's cool about religion, or all the different ways in which people think the world and God or universe or source happens, is there's so many different stories that are all telling a similar story. What I'm trying to say is there's so many different ways to think about religion or faith or how we got here, where we're going. But most of them have like a lot of similarities and through lines, and we're just telling them in different ways. We're using different characters.
Yeah, it's brilliant. And that's why it's so beautiful. And like, I mean, even there's like The Lion King is like the same story as Pinocchio, as The Matrix, as like, you could like parables that Jesus told, or the book of Genesis, and it's like,
You just said how like Lion King graveyard, you know, could relate to the apple in the garden.
yeah, it's so cool.
Religion can be so separating and destructive. Especially if you only like fall into one bucket and you're like, this bucket is the only one that is true.
Right.
But there's so many different religions and there's so many different people. Like, I think we're onto something here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities, like a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
And there's probably like some things at the center.
Our ancestors were brilliant because they were trying to put something into words that can't be put into words. Like, think about trying to articulate how to be and how to raise human consciousness. It's like, of course you would say, well, think of it like there's a father in the sky, but he's a judgmental father. And if you do this, this is going to happen. And if you do this, he'll do this. It's like, that's a great way to sort of, for ancient people to understand this idea of how to orient yourself in the world and how the nature of the universe works. Like, even the idea of like, you know, in the Bible, at least, it's like, that's what I grew up with. And it was like there's this idea of like sacrifice, and you have a first like animal sacrifice, but then you have like it gets like, you know, where it's Abraham and Isaac, like he has to like sacrifice his son. You're like, well, what are they doing? Like it sounds so primitive, like, but it's actually really genius when you look at what they were doing. They were symbolizing that like in order to be like God, be the master of your destiny, you're going to have to sacrifice certain things. And what are you willing to sacrifice? And a lot of times the things you need to sacrifice are what you love best. Like Isaac, his son, was what he loved the best. Are you willing to sacrifice that? It's not talking about actually sacrificing like a human.
Yes.
Or it's like, but it's to get across the idea in a story that like in order to orient yourself properly, you have to be willing to sacrifice. I mean, even like, you know, as we like embarked upon music, it's like, what are we willing to sacrifice? And that doesn't mean like out of like, I'll sacrifice. It's like, but you like spend time. Or if you want to be a doctor, it's
Right.
like, and you got to go to school. It's like you got to sacrifice maybe some time that you were just gonna like hang out and play video games or whatever.
Right.
There is a sacrifice to,
Or even
being
to
good
like
at anything.
within that, like people's professions where you have to sacrifice like missing like a family vacation.
Yeah.
Or so, you know, like like really crucial things, but you're like, no, I know I'm supposed to be a doctor or like do
Right.
this. And that's a really beautiful way of putting it. Like you said, that story in the Bible, and I think is what I was trying to get at earlier, like, this is just my own perspective, but like with most religions, like they are telling like stories as symbols to help us know ourselves and see ourselves in the journey. Not
Yeah.
necessarily as literal
Totally.
like things like sacrifice your son if you want to be the most sacrificing person.
No,
Like,
and that's why it's so interesting. Like, you know, in you know, because like for a while, like common people couldn't read the Bible, or they weren't even allowed to for a long time. And a lot of, I think for a part, I was like, well, that's crazy. Like the Catholic Church, like that's evil, and they wouldn't let people read the Bible. And then when you kind of think about it, you're like, dang, well, I can sort of see why, because if you're just reading it as like literal, it's like you got people sacrificing their kids or something.
well, but that's exactly what I feel like what is happening, like with
Right.
different religions. It's like being taken literally, and then it's
Right.
just being like mass like destruction and hurt and
Right.
pain and separation. It
Right.
doesn't have to be that way. I don't
No.
even think it was written.
It was not written to
Any
be
of
that way.
them
The
to be
people
that
of the
way.
historical context of the time were like, I see what this is talking about.
Like this story is going to help reflect this quality that someone will see within themselves,
Right.
to either strengthen or like work on, like
Right.
get in check.
Yeah, like even like the myths of like the old, you have like Mars, and he's the god of war, Venus and love and attraction. It's like
Right, in mythology.
they were ways to articulate ideas. Like when you fell in love with someone, like the goddess of Venus inhabited me. It's like, well, is that an actual being? It's like, no, not really, but it was a way to, kind of though, in a way, like it is an energy.
An
There is a
energy,
real
totally,
thing. It's not like,
totally.
it doesn't look like a human that's walking around that inhabits a body, but it's like there are real energies or forces in the world that do inhabit you and come over you. Whether that's anger, and I'm inhabited by the god of war,
Yeah.
or it's like, they really exist, but we have to personify them in our human minds to understand those concepts. It is
Whoa.
a big symbol, like you said.
Yeah.
They're all symbols.
Whoa.
So on that topic of sacrifice, what is something that you have or feel like you have sacrificed in order to get where you are today?
I just feel like that's such an epic question to ask me as we stand on this mountaintop and the sun
What is
comes up
something
over
you
the
have
horizon.
sacrificed? This is pretty epic.
Okay, what's something that I feel like I've sacrificed
To get to where you are today.
to get to where I am today?
Yeah. Something you sacrificed.
This is kind of like the shadow question. There's so many different ways that it could go in my brain. But the what is like coming through in my gut is like I sacrificed myself for a long time, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
Not in a positive symbolism, beautiful storytelling way, in a literal way, with being a people pleaser and operating out of that space, and being, it has nothing to do with me being an actor. It had everything to do with me being a people pleaser, and then I chose acting. So it really personified itself to me, like through acting. I think that if I decided that I wanted to be an actor again right now, and I went into that profession, it would be totally different because I know myself now. And so I'm not looking for anything like from that. It would just be fun because I think creating on set is fun, which is why I love getting to have all of the creative maneuvering with everything with Little Luna and my music videos. But I think, yeah, something that I sacrificed in a not good way was myself. And then something that I've sacrificed in, which even though it wasn't good at the time, it's led to good now because I know myself now. But like something that I've sacrificed on the, let's say the positive side would be like financial relaxation, let's call it, because I fund everything myself with my music. And I know it's what I'm supposed to be doing, so I'm happy to. But if I wanted to take the easier route for myself, the money that I, make, I could just like, I don't know, hang out. And nothing wrong with hanging out, but I just know that I'm supposed to be making music. And I could use the money that I make from other jobs and whatnot to just be and do something I know I'm not really like supposed to be doing, like something that would be like an easy way out for me. But I'm not supposed to take the easy way out. I'm supposed to make this music and continue to know myself and just share my music for whoever else connects with it.
Do you think in some ways that you sacrificed acting to be a musician?
Yeah,
Was that a hard transition?
If you put it that way. No, it was the easiest, most clear decision I've ever made in my life, the day that I sent my email to my reps. And I was like, I'm done.
You were on Disney shows. You were
Yes,
on Sweet Life.
I was,
You were doing well.
I did well in that time.
Yeah.
It was an ebb and flow. I don't look at it like
Sure.
I had this substantial career. I think I had blips and like moments,
Yeah.
which I don't feel bad or negative about. I'm so thankful like for that time. But looking at it, it wouldn't have worked. I didn't know myself. It worked in certain moments because I love studying and understanding other people. So with acting, like I'm pretty good at understanding and putting myself in other people's shoes. But then often when it came time to really step into that, even if I understand other people, if I don't understand myself, it's still not going to work. And like my insecurities and whatnot would like pop up in the audition room, and I'd self-sabotage myself because I didn't know myself.
Right.
I knew the story I was trying to tell very well,
Right.
but I didn't know myself and like enough to allow myself to be like at ease and at peace there, which I've shared with you always changes on set. Like whenever I would be like, if I would get the job and I would be on set, there was never that like wavering and like insecurity. I already had the job, so then I could just do my job, which was be an actor and like tell this other person's story. And so for music, it's something I've wanted to do just as long as I've wanted to be, or wanted and was, an actor. And so when I made that decision to be like, nope, I'm going into this 100%, it just felt like freedom. It felt like that feeling of when I was on set in the past. Like I was hired. Like I hired myself. Yeah, I hired myself. I hired myself.
You did
And that's
hire
only
yourself.
been fantastic. Even though I'm paying for it all myself, still.
Yeah, but like, what difference what difference in your life would it be if you were just keeping all the money and not paying for it?
Oh, well, no, not from that perspective. I just want to do the things I'm doing now, but on an even bigger scale. Like, I just want to like take care of everyone and like treat my friends and like buy my parents a house out here. And like, there's things that as the money comes in, I want to like give more of it away, and I'm excited to do that. And I'm excited for one day for music to make me money, you know?
It will very soon.
It will. It already is on a small scale.
It already is, and I mean, what an interesting period of music right now. And I feel like there's like this divide that sort of occurred between like, well, music used to be such a place to like tell the truth and to expand human consciousness in some way. And there's not that many artists that I've encountered who are really like using their voice and their creativity to from their perspective like put good into the world. And so you're one of those for me, which like, of course you're my friend, so I'm biased, but I'm like, I think what you're doing is important in the sphere of music, and especially with where we're at in the world. We need art to serve that purpose again. So I'm glad you're doing what you're doing.
I feel that. I'm glad I am too. And like you said, it's all just coming from our own unique lens. So every artist has the power to do that.
Yes, very much so.
But it still just goes back to like, if you don't know yourself, then like, what are you putting out? And like, what are you serving? What's the, like, literally like, what's the purpose?
I mean, I've shared that with you like for a long time as an artist. I was writing music that like I just thought like would make me look cool, or that other people would like, or like, I'll write a song like this because maybe that'll be a hit and make me money. And it's like, it never mattered. It didn't matter to me, didn't matter to anybody else. It didn't matter and to matter. And there's a fear behind it, really, at the root of that, of like, well, it's partly not knowing yourself, and then it's partly a fear of like, well, I need to do these certain things to be successful because this is what I've heard. And I think a lot of artists can fall into that like easily, of you start to wear a mask because you don't know where you are, and to put yourself out there fully as an artist of who you are is pretty scary, actually.
Yes, and I think a lot of the time you don't even know you're wearing a mask.
You don't know.
Like if you would take me through like my time like as an actor, like I was a healthy, happy, thriving human being. I wasn't like I didn't know that I wasn't fully being myself.
Exactly.
Know what I mean? If you would have asked me, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is myself, this is who I am. 100%. And even saying this now, you know, we're gonna watch this video back or whatever. Be like, I knew.
Look at him trying to look cool on the camera.
I knew nothing, but yet at the same time, though, we do know things in this particular season. But I think with that, whether it's an artist or just anyone, whatever you're doing, sometimes you don't realize that you have the mask on.
I don't know if you really, I was gonna say I don't know if you ever do. But I think it's just layers of, I think it just keeps going until you just realize that you're one being with everybody else. I mean, even like, you know, when you're able to love your neighbor as yourself, like in the words of Jesus, it's very different than loving your neighbor like yourself. Loving your neighbor as yourself means everyone is you. Every single person you see is yourself looking back at you, and vice versa. We're all this one thing, and that's removing layers of the mask. Like that's the real truth. And it's easy to say that kind of intellectually and know it. And then there's layers to actually understanding and living that, and what that means when you talk to someone, when you have a conversation with someone, when someone says something that pushes your buttons knowingly or unknowingly. You know, I think most of the time it's unknowingly, but sometimes you get someone who's really trying to dig into you, maybe just because they don't like you. And then to be able to see that person, be like, they don't know what they're doing, and it's okay, because I've been that so many times where I've dug into somebody and I didn't know why. But now it's like, man, we're everybody.
Right, and maybe there's that level of like, oh, but now I know a little bit more, not knowledge, but like self. So you
Yes.
recognize
Yeah.
when you are doing that to other people or projecting.
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 What's something, what's something interesting that's happened this week in your life? Or an experience, someone you met?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is directly related to Little Luna.
Okay,
because I have my first ever not only label meeting, but with them finding my music and reaching out to us, which is really cool. So it's a smaller label, which I think could be rad, and who knows what will come from it. But just that meeting in general, I released Shift and Go like almost a year ago, last October. And so there's been so many things that I want to come from this, not because so like I can be with a label, but so that more people can hear my music. If they help me do that, then great.
Yeah.
So I got that call last night that I had that on Tuesday.
Dude.
So that'll be very...
That's so, just that external
Moment.
Moment of like, I'm moving in the right direction.
I'm
Even if it's
moving
just
forward.
that. Yeah,
regardless
exactly.
of what happens with them in that meeting. Like
Yeah.
I'm moving forward and also coming back to, I'm like, there's so many good things that happened this week. I'm not just saying that as a cop-out, but I'm like, I don't know. I learned so much from kids this week. And you know what my like favorite thing about this week is I woke up early every day this week, and every single time I wanted to go back to sleep, but I didn't. I got up and I started my day how I know I need to, is like grounding down by myself and like having my little rising rituals. And so that's an exciting thing that happened this week, because I've been wanting to do that for the last few weeks and I haven't been doing it, and I did it. And then I noticed a complete shift in each of my days, and then just the week as a whole. What came up, and like, yeah, and like with what I want to do and am doing with music, like what doors opened. And you know what I loved about this week? I don't know if it was the question. What did I love, or what happened, or what was good? We went and ate delicious food together and had great conversations.
That was so good.
And we're doing it again right now.
Center of the restaurant.
Yeah, we sat in the center of the restaurant, which I didn't realize was a insecurity of mine
Leave it to me
until
to
we
poke
were there.
out your insecurities.
I know. And I love how I was like,
I'm sorry.
I love how I was like, it's not an insecurity. I just like to be able to see the whole room, which is true.
Yeah,
I do like to be able to see the whole room, because then I'm more in control.
Yeah.
But sitting in the middle of the room, you forced me to just, in this one very small example, just like let life happen around me and I'll be fine right there in the center.
Man.
Simple as that. Simple as like being at a restaurant and sitting where you absolutely don't want to sit, to just tell you more about yourself.
I mean, I really am seeing more and more how I can be completely exhausting. So I thank you for being my friend. Like, I'll see one little thing, I'll be like, ooh, I bet we can do a test on Rachel.
Well,
I had an
I don't feel
ex-girlfriend
like-
tell me I was exhausting. I'm like, you're right. You're so
right.
right.
constantly in a state of like learning.
Yeah.
But you know what? The positive side of that is that you learn things, and your intention is to want to share them with other people rather than just hoarding things that you've learned for yourself,
Yeah.
which isn't helpful to anybody else.
And in that scenario, when it was like, I was like, I know there's something here, but I was just like, let's sit in the, and it wasn't like, even when you were saying like, no, it's because of this and this and this, I was like, yeah, it is, but it's also, but it just like.
Totally, it's both. It's not,
both.
it's ever one or the other.
But you do the same thing for me. You'll be like, hey. I
do.
And I love it.
I do.
Those are like all my best friends in my life. It's like, that's it. Because it's all like a place of love, like
It's completely different if it's not coming out of a place
it's
of love.
completely
it's not,
different. Of
it's
judgment.
not helpful, or manipulation.
Manipulation too, yeah. No, like,
Or like you're not seeing something how I'm seeing it. I figured out
Yes.
a key in life, and
Yes.
you haven't figured it out yet.
I was like,
Let
we
me
all
help
have
you.
keys. We
Right.
all have keys, and then we can help each other understand each other's keys, and then we all rise up together.
Yes, that's the, like 2021, I would say, like overarching sentence that's in my planner. That's just like my favorite thing I've ever purchased. And her name is Goddess on Instagram, but she says, or maybe she downloaded it from someone else, I don't know. But it says, you are both the lock and the key. And that's just been like such a huge,
So good.
like, poof for me. Especially when things aren't happening and moving forward. It's me. It's always me stopping myself. That's something that you first told me in our friendship that was
it's always
so
you. It's never
hard
me.
for me to hear. Right, which once again, if it's not coming out of a place of love, could be completely manipulating somebody.
Yeah,
Like that
you're
sounds
right.
like an abusive relationship in the
Yeah.
making. It could be that. But when it's coming out of a place of love, like it's not that. Like it's
Yeah.
you know, it's just helping you, like you helped me see myself in ways in which I was blocking myself.
Okay, I have a funny story to tell you.
Let's hear it.
Yesterday, well, I got to give you a little backstory before we get to yesterday. and then
Context.
Before we get to today. The last like couple months I've been listening to a ton of Usher, and even like a couple days ago when I was training with my trainer, we were like singing Usher, lifting weights, just like, you know, whatever. And like I've loved Usher since I was a kid, but just for whatever reason, like especially the last couple months and like even more so in the last 2 weeks, just like listening to a lot of Usher. And so anyway, yesterday I'll go on like a hike and talk on the phone like sometimes. So I was on the phone with Josh, my manager, and like going out the door to hike, and I walk outside the door of the house, and I was like, I think that's Usher. And I was like, Josh, let me call you back. And he was like, okay. So then I walked and I was like, oh, that is totally Usher. And I knew that someone had just moved into the house next door, but I didn't know who. And I was like, so I like, Usher was just standing there. Well, he was just standing there. He was on top of his like awesome looking like mountain vehicle. I think he was like taking a epic photo for social media or something. But I was just like, hey, are you my new neighbor? And he looked and he was like, I was like, I live right there. And he was like, yeah, I guess so. I was like, it's like, what's your name? And I was like, oh, I'm Roy, and like whatever. And I was just like, we had a little conversation. I was like, dang, the world's pretty weird. I don't know why I've been listening to Usher so much, but now he's my next door neighbor.
Wow. I love that.
Pretty random.
But it's not random though.
But
and
it's
that's
not
what's
like,
so
and that's what's like,
interconnected
yeah,
and
that's what's
interesting.
so weird about like the situations that we find ourselves in, and even like how in my mind at the time, like, you know, those flash like thoughts go through your head, because at first it was like, that's Usher, that's pretty cool, and then my gut goes, just say hi, like it's like your neighbor, you would do that for anyone else. But then my head goes, no, like you don't want to annoy him or like be
Right, he's
weird
Usher,
or like,
yeah.
But then I was like, but that's just coming from a place of like fear, really.
Fear, right.
And I was like, oh, no, that's not the truth. So then I just said hi, and he was super sweet.
But you didn't say, hey, are you Usher? Which, like, you know, there's something to be said for your sacred space where you're living, that it's your safe space. But
Oh,
you didn't just
heck
say,
yeah.
hey, are you Usher? Like, you said, hey, are you my new neighbor? Which is the truth, and also like supportive, not like, are you Usher? Because now I'm going to take your photo or something. Like, you're just saying, are you my neighbor? Because I live here.
Now I know where you live.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a pretty funny story. And I'm just not even surprised at all. I normally don't really talk this much about like the acting time, but I just had another thought, and that's that I was always telling other people's stories within that. Obviously, it wasn't like playing myself or
Right.
like acting as myself. But with music, it's just straight up like, here's Rachel, here's little Luna, and these are my songs or like visuals that have come to me that help me tell my truth, that then when other people listen or watch the things that I put out, my like intention is that it would help them know themselves, because knowing myself has been the most and is, I like, it's not like I'm like, oh, knew myself now, I've peaked.
Got it.
No, but this journey of like discovering that like true voice and true self that is me, that I was created with. That's my intention with my music, is that other people would listen and see themselves in it. Doesn't even matter about me when they listen to it.
Right.
But I did my best at telling my truth through it so they can listen to it and see themselves in it.
That's important.
And like hopefully be encouraged.
Have you read the Tao?
I haven't, no. You've been telling me I need to for like
it's
2
like
years.
really short. It's like a tiny little, but like
Oh.
it's so profound.
Normally when you give me books, they're like this big.
Yeah, like
The externalization of the hierarchy.
an 800
I'm
page
on like,
tiny
I've
font.
been on page 50 for like the last year.
But I love that you're just like, all right, cool.
Yeah,
I'm not giving you light reads.
no. But that's okay. I mean, I have my light reads too, because everything in balance. Let's also
Yeah.
talk about that. If we're talking about the sun and the moon and masculine and feminine,
Good
everything
idea.
as a whole, that we all have all the things at all times. It's like, personally, I can't just, and even this conversation, I love this. This is fueling for me, you know, like you said, but it can be exhausting to contemplate the universe and how you work within it. like what you might be doing here,
Oh,
and like what God
Yeah,
is and does. So I have my light reads too.
you need that.
I
You're
can always
so
just be
right.
like diving in. It's like, you also gotta just like a book that I'm reading is just like a period piece romance, you know? I'm
Right.
just read it and I'm like, oh, creative. Like other times, it's like at least
Yeah.
for me, it can't all just be like learning things that potentially change my being and change my life. Like there also just has to be like some other time in there where we're just vibing.
See, I need to work on the balance on the other way too. It's like I'm just always diving in. Not always, but
Right,
like,
and it doesn't mean that you like choose to consume things that are like,
but have fun.
I don't know, but yeah, like
Yeah.
just but our conversation, but like this is fun for me though, so I don't even think it's that. It's just
Yeah.
just reading or listening to things that maybe don't always take your mind and your spirit into a
See,
journey.
I try to do that sometimes, and then I'm like watching Pinocchio. I'm like, all right, I gotta take notes.
You're trying.
I'm trying.
You're
though.
trying.
Dude,
for you.
This was so good.
Love you. Oh yeah, our heart hugs.
Yes.
We always hug like this. And I'm like, wait a second. Because
I'm
I
like,
learned
just
in one
wanna
of my
feel
yoga
good.
teacher trainings, you align your heart
Yep.